So Tamara, we're all set from technology side, if everyone's here.
Excellent, thank you. I will turn this over to Chairman Teske. It looks like we've got all of our members of Planning Commission on this evening, and we have one item on the agenda this evening.
Fantastic.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to the December 1st, 2020 City of Grand Junction Planning Commission meeting. Tonight's public meeting, as you have doubtless noticed already, is being held virtually to meet local requirements for safer at home and social distancing currently in place in our community. This virtual public meeting is being held via GoToWebinar and will be monitored by city staff. Members of the public can join the virtual meeting by using the URL located on the meeting agenda and on the city's website. Members of the public joining virtually tonight will have the opportunity to provide public comment during the public comment portion of each item. Of course, there is only just the one. Should a member of the public want to provide a comment, please let us know by using the raise hand feature. Please note that for all items scheduled for a public hearing this evening, a public hearing has also been conducted online at gjspeaks.org, where information pertaining to the applicant's request as well as presentations are available. The comments received via GJ Speaks are reviewed in advance by the Planning Commission and are included as part of the public testimony of each corresponding item this evening. Items on the consent agenda are items perceived to be non-controversial in nature and meet all requirements of the codes and regulations, and or the applicant has acknowledged agreement with recommended conditions. The consent agenda will be acted upon in one motion unless the applicant, a member of the public, a planning commissioner, or staff requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda. Items removed from the consent agenda will be reviewed as part of the regular agenda. Consent agenda items must be removed from the consent agenda for a full hearing to be eligible for appeal or rehearing. Is there a request from the commission to remove any items from the consent agenda? I believe it's just the approval of our minutes from October. I see and hear none. So in that event, is there anyone online who would like the commission to remove the consideration of our minutes from the consent agenda this evening? I'm not sure I'll be able to see all of you, but perhaps someone will let me know.
Chairman Teske, I don't see anybody raising their hand on this item.
Fantastic. Thank you, Director Allen. Well, in that event, let's see. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nay. All right. Matter will pass 7-0. Moving right along then to the public hearing component of our agenda this evening. Public hearings are conducted pursuant to the laws of the state of Colorado, the city of Grand Junction, and the regulations duly adopted by this planning commission. The purpose of this hearing is to receive information and testimony by all interested parties to enable the planning commission to make appropriate findings and reach the conclusions required to be made by law. Both a written and video recording are made of these proceedings. Those who desire to be heard must identify themselves by their full name. The order of this hearing will be as follows: an examination of the application and a determination concerning the adequacy of notification, a presentation, description, and analysis of the application by staff, an opportunity for the applicant to present evidence and argument concerning the applicant's position. All other interested parties may address the commission. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes for each speaker, and do be careful that goes quickly. The Planning Commission may ask questions of staff, the applicant, or members of the public after each presentation. Public comment section of the hearing may be closed after all public comment has been received. The applicant will be given the opportunity to respond or provide rebuttal if desired. Staff may respond to any statement made by the applicant, the public, or by the Planning Commission. The chair will then close the public hearing and no further evidence will be accepted. The evidentiary portion may be reopened only by a majority vote of the commission. After the closure of the public hearing, the Planning Commission will begin its deliberation, which will end with the passage of a motion. Our first and only item on the agenda this evening is to consider a request by the City of Grand Junction to adopt the 2021 Grand Junction Comprehensive Plan. I presume we're all ready to go with this. The applicant's all here, obviously from the city. Are we ready to go?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Thornton. Before we begin, was there required public notice provided for this item?
Mr. Chairman, yes, it was provided as per zoning and development code.
All right. Well, with that, we can proceed. Mr. Thornton, would you please introduce the exhibits for our record?
Absolutely. Exhibit item number 1 is the staff report dated December 1st, 2020. Exhibit item number 2 is the One Grand Junction Comprehensive Plan dated November 23rd. Exhibit item number 3 is the list of meetings held during the public outreach planning process. Exhibit number 4 is the project website and virtual engagement comments and emails on the November 4th comprehensive plan draft. Exhibit item number 5 is a proposed ordinance that will be going forward to City Council as an ordinance. Exhibit item number 6 is the staff presentation dated December 1st, 2020.
Thank you. Are there any additional exhibits that need to be added to the record?
There are not.
Please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of Planning Commission. Definitely unique times as I look at the computer screen and see all of your faces. Dave Thornton here, Principal Planner for the City of Grand Junction. I'm definitely pleased to be able to present to you tonight this plan, this effort that has gone on for the last 21 months since February of 2019. And lots of community outreach and input and lots of staff time, lots of Planning Commission time. We have our Citizens Advisory Committee, which I'd like to introduce. 3 of our members are here tonight as part of the panel. We've got Ivan Gear, who's here. We have actually one of our own Planning Commissioners, Keith Ellers, and we have Aaron Nix. And they will be helping in part of the presentation as we move forward. The bulk of the presentation will be by myself. As far as we get into questions and such, we also have our Community Development Director, Tamara Allen, that will do a lot of the tag team with me and trying to answer some of the questions that might come up from the public or from Planning Commission, as well as those members I mentioned from CPAC as they relate to things that they may have worked on. We also have Lance Gloss, who's been instrumental in on a staff team helping, and so he's available as well to help answer questions. And also on this virtual meeting, we have Josh Coons, who represents Housing Levine and Associates, our consultant team that's here as well to answer questions that might come up that would be best answered by him. So we've got quite a team of people that can help bring this plan to you and answer your questions. I'm going to take over the screen so you can see my presentation here. Hopefully I won't. Let's see. I'm looking for the start. Shoot. It's like, where's the start button? Yeah.
So, you'll just want to hit show screen there.
Clicking on no. Oh, here we go. Can anybody see my screen yet? Okay, great. Thanks. All right. All right, so the 2021 Grand Junction Comprehensive Plan is a 10 to 20-year plan that is applicable to the city's urban growth area, an area generally located between 21 Road on the west, J Road on the north, 32 Road on the east, and south to a boundary approximately 1/4 of a mile north of the Mesa County landfill, and will supersede and replace the 2010 Grand Junction Comprehensive Plan. The One Grand Junction Comprehensive Plan is a product of 22 months of public outreach, stakeholder discussions, contributions by consultants, and work by the City of Grand Junction staff. Whereas many plans make a narrower focus and are primarily intended to address future growth and land use within a community, this plan is truly comprehensive as it addresses the community's vision for a wide range of topics. The plan identifies and establishes the city's vision by establishing plan principles, goals, and strategies that will guide Grand Junction in reaching its vision. The plan consists of 5 chapters and an appendices. Chapter 1 is the introduction and presents the purpose of the comprehensive plan, how it should be used and updated, key factors in its development, and its organization. Grand Junction is authorized to prepare a comprehensive plan as a long-range guiding document to achieve its vision and goals under Colorado Revised Statutes 3028-106 and 3123-206. Under the statutes, the only required elements
Let them know that we're pausing for a second for technology.
All right, you're going to pause just for technology concern.
Yeah, and I see you.
Dave and Bella, I think if you click display settings there, it will let you switch which monitor is being shown on the share screen.
You seeing the okay, great. Sorry about that. So under the statutes, the only required elements is for the plan to contain a recreational and tourism uses element, which are covered under Plan Principle 2, Resilient and Diverse Economy, and Plan Principle 7, Great Places and Recreation, both found in Chapter 2 of the plan. The One Grand Junction Comprehensive Plan addresses issues within the municipal boundary of the city, as well as in its planning area, including topics that not only addresses the diversity of topics listed, but also how they interconnect, setting the city on track for efficiency and coordinated action. The One Grand Junction Comprehensive Plan also provides a policy framework for regulatory tools like zoning and annexations, and establishes the framework for fiscally responsible and well-managed growth. It is the city's 3-mile plan as required under Colorado State Statutes 3112-101. As part of the public engagement and planning process, inclusive and engaging community outreach process for each phase of the process emphasized a range of tools, including small focus group discussions, interactive online engagement, surveys, workshops, and presentations to groups across the city. The city also strived to provide avenues for engagement, including outreach for students and youth, those that are identified as Latino or Hispanic ethnicity, and Spanish-speaking residents. Collecting input and facilitating discussion, outreach has helped to identify the issues, opportunities, potential projects, key strengths and assets, and overall public vision as the community moves forward. The city hosted a total of 33 focus groups and meetings, including 3 public events held at the end of the planning process to review and obtain feedback on the draft plan document. In-person focus groups and workshops, online participation, and immersive outreach created a range of ways for participants to engage in the planning process. Across all outreach formats, including in-person, online, and immersive outreach, there have been over 2,200 engagement responses, each representing an instance of public participation. The term engagement response is used to acknowledge that an individual participant may engage with the planning process more than once. Additionally, the city appointed a group of 16 citizens called the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee, or CPAC for short, that met multiple times during the planning process to provide critical feedback, guidance, and direction on the formation of the plan. Under consideration tonight is the November 23rd draft, which has been updated to address many public comments received for public review of the draft from the November 4th draft that was reviewed by the public, and from those public events held on November 10th and 12th, including both virtual and in-person events. Just wanted to talk a little bit about what we've done with those comments from the November 4th draft as we move forward to the draft that you're considering tonight, the November 23rd draft. There were and these comments were included in your staff packet as part of this hearing. There were a lot of comments from our neighbors up north in the north part of Grand Junction concerned over an area between 24 and 25 Road, just north of I-70 as far as the land use plan for that area. We looked at those comments. We brought our advisory committee, CPAC, to meet and discuss. And from that meeting, there was changes that were made from the November 4th plan that are now reflected in the November 23rd plan. Other comments you may have noticed, some were just more typographical or edits that might improve the way something is more accurate, and a lot of those were made in the revised document that you're seeing tonight. It gave us a good opportunity to kind of comb through those and make sure that we were addressing the concerns of the community. Obviously, not everything was changed. There's some things that were perhaps in the plan, but the person commented didn't realize that it was there, and so we didn't need to repeat it in another section necessarily. Excuse me. I also want to mention that as part of the November 23rd draft that you're considering tonight, that we've received no written public comments regarding that draft through DJ Speaks or on the Comprehensive Plan website. So all the comments have come in were for the November 4th draft. Chapter 2, as I mentioned, there's 5 chapters in the plan, and then kind of a 5th chapter, or 6th chapter, you might say, it's called the appendices. But Chapter 2, Plan Principles. This chapter establishes the community vision that guides the comprehensive plan and establishes goals and strategies for implementation. There are 11 plan principles that guide the community in reaching its vision. Each starts with evaluating present conditions and asking where we are today. Then it asks the question, where are we going? And takes on the perspective of Grand Junction 20 years from now as a way of establishing what the community would like to have accomplished by 2040. Following this is a third question, how will we get there? This is where the plan draws a line from existing conditions to future goals, identifying specific strategies to help achieve those goals. The 11 plan principles include collective identity. This plan principle looks at preserving, promoting, and celebrating Grand Junction's identity, diversity, and history. Number 2, resilient and diverse economy. This plan principle seeks to foster a vibrant, diverse, and resilient economy, supporting the workforce, promoting business growth, supporting our tourism industry, and investing in key infrastructure that supports businesses. Number 3 is responsible and managed growth. This principle supports fiscally responsible growth and annexation policies, encouraging infill redevelopment, collaborating with regional entities and service providers, maintaining and building urban-level infrastructure, and planning for and ensuring fiscal responsible delivery of city services and infrastructure. Principle number 4, downtown and university districts. This seeks to help these areas to become more livable while balancing needs, strengthening multimodal connections, and continuing to promote reinvestment into downtown, the riverfront, lower downtown, and the area around CMU. Strong neighborhoods and housing choices is plan principle number 5. It promotes more opportunities that meet all community needs. Partnering with other housing providers in developing housing strategies, supporting investment in maintenance and amenities in existing neighborhoods, and fostering neighborhood development where people of all ages, incomes, and backgrounds can live. Number 6 is efficient and connected transportation. This plan principle has goals that develop a safe, balanced, and well-connected transportation system that has reliability, efficiency, and safety. Other goals include facilitating the movement of goods, encouraging transit, bicycling, walking, and the need to plan for the future while emerging technologies and opportunities. Great places and recreation opportunities is Plan Principle 7. It includes goals such as providing a safe and accessible network of parks, open spaces, and trails, addressing equity of location of these, and maintaining access to public lands, fostering opportunities to bring people together by developing great public spaces and supporting the arts and culture community. Resources stewardship is number 8. It focuses on promoting water conservation, water quality, sustainable development, and waste reduction practices, all goals of resource stewardship. Other goals include the need to refocus conservation and sustainability efforts, preserve unique assets, manage the city's urban forest, and practice wise water use landscaping. Quality education facilities is number 9. It identifies goals such as supporting District 51 in high quality and accessible education, adequate facilities and infrastructure, and support Mesa County libraries and community-based education. Number 10 is safe and healthy communities. This plan principle includes providing excellence in public safety and emergency response, promoting access to health and wellness, fostering a culture of inclusiveness, respecting diversity, promoting a safe and resilient community. And the final, number 11, effective and transparent government. This plan principle establishes goals for the city to align day-to-day decision-making and budgeting within the implementation of the comprehensive plan. It includes goals of providing opportunities for meaningful and inclusive community involvement, increasing the efficiency of city facilities, and upgrading the effectiveness of government programs and city services. Also, it includes the need for collaborating with local partners on mutual issues and developing and supporting leadership that reflects the diversity of the community. And my apologies, here's the slide you should have been looking at while I was just talking about Plan Principle 2. So you can see here on the slide, all 11 are listed. Chapter 3. This chapter is the land use and growth chapter. It illustrates and describes the type and location of future land uses within Grand Junction. The plan utilizes a tiered growth approach meant to complement the land use map, creating 3 tiers in a concentrical pattern moving outward from the city center and in an incentive area that will influence how the city continues to prioritize and annex new growth. The land use map in Chapter 3 replaces the 2010 future land use map for the city, and along with Plan Principle 3, responsible and managed growth in Chapter 2, and area-specific policies in Chapter 4, chart a course of balanced growth, promoting infill and redevelopment in the city's core, as well as greenfield development on the city's edges. Chapter 3 also addresses target service levels for specific services. The following key factors are instrumental in informing the development of the plan's policy related to future growth. Key factor, first one is projected population growth. The state demographer's population projections of an annual growth rate of 1.1% for the urban development boundary means 24,000 additional people for a total of 124,000 people by 2040. Within the average household size at 2.2 persons per household, nearly 11,000 new dwelling units will be needed over the next 20 years. Another factor, the Persigo 201 service area boundary. The 1998 Persigo Agreement outlines requirements for annexation as a condition of development within the defined 201 boundary. Because of this agreement, the city can expect nearly all of the growth in the urban development boundary will occur within the city limits. Another factor is the urban development boundary, or the UDB. The 2010 Comprehensive Plan established the UDB, which under the Persigo Agreement is to align with the Persigo 201 boundary. The proposed 2020 plan generally follows the 2010 UDB boundary with a few exceptions. Strategic adjustments were made to the UDB to better align the boundary with specific constraints, past Persigo 201 boundary decisions, and this plan's policy related to greenfield development. Another factor is the housing supply and needs. Public input focused on the housing needs of the community and the lack of housing in certain price points. Comments also focused on concerns regarding those that are experiencing both acute and chronic homelessness. The plan addresses housing, the need for it to be adequate, attainable, and the need to address undersupply and housing type. It also addresses the need to collaborate on the topic of homelessness. This is particularly important as the community looks to build the projected 11,000 homes needed to be constructed through 2040 to accommodate expected growth. Key factor, another one, commercial and employment gaps and needs. Public engagement in the planning process highlighted the need to ensure existing businesses can survive and grow and future businesses can start up and thrive in a healthy environment. The plan provides a land use map identifying commercial and industrial areas which preserve existing businesses and employment areas and provide new areas for growth. In addition, a broad mixed use land use category was created to allow for areas where both employment and housing can occur together, providing neighborhood access to goods and services, a reoccurring desire heard from many during the public outreach. And then a key factor of balanced growth. The plan envisions future growth will be both one infill and redevelopment and two greenfield development. Also in Chapter 3, there's the intensification and growth tiers map. This map is intended to guide the city's long-term planning and reflect locational priorities for which the city should accommodate and prioritize the future population. This starts with the intensification of the city's urban core, which allows the city to support the efficient use of existing public facilities and services by directing development to locations adequately served by existing public facilities and services such as water, sewer, police, transportation, schools, fire, stormwater management, and parks. It allows the city to better align capital improvements and infrastructure investments with its financial resources. The map identifies 3 tiers for future growth and acknowledges an area in which the city should continue to offer incentives for infill redevelopment. Tier 1, which is the real light green on the map on the left of your screen, is areas where it's called the urban infill area. It's areas where urban services already exist and generally meet service levels, usually within existing city limits, where the focus is on intensifying residential and commercial areas through infill and redevelopment. Tier 2 is the suburban infill. It's this little bit greener or a little darker green on the map. I guess they're all green, a little darker green. These areas within the existing UDB and 201 that are urbanizing and include areas that were mostly developed in unincorporated Mesa County and infrequently improved with urban infrastructure such as curb, gutter, sidewalks, and parks. Tier 3 is outward growth. That's the dark green. Areas areas predominantly characterized as rural and larger acreage properties not currently served by urban infrastructure and that are prioritized to stay rural for the duration of the 20-year planning horizon to promote more focused development activity in Tier 1 and Tier 2. And then there's the incentive areas. This area consistent with past city plans and in general include the rail, river, downtown, and university districts, as well as the North Avenue corridor and State Highway 50 corridor on Orchard Mesa. The map on the right is the land use map. Chapter 3 establishes the land use map. It includes 9 land use categories, a significant simplification from the 2010 future land use map that included 22 land use categories. Each land use category provides an allowable range of densities, specific characteristics of the land use category, primary and secondary land uses permitted, and the implementing zone districts for each land use category. The map provides 3 land use categories for residential with densities that are urban level densities. These land use categories include residential low with densities of 2 to 5.5 dwelling units per acre, residential medium with densities of 5.5 to 12 dwelling units per acre, and residential high with densities over 12 dwelling units per acre. A highlight of the proposed 2020 land use map is identifying areas beyond the city's core, areas on the periphery or edges of the UDB that are shown as rural. The land use map provides for a residential rural designation. These areas are intended to remain rural up to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres for the duration of the planning horizon, thereby promoting more focused development activity in Tier 1 and Tier 2, where the other urban land use categories are, and encourage growth in these 2 tiers. These rural areas work in tandem with the intensification and growth tiers map to encourage these areas to remain rural for the foreseeable future. Much was said by the public through the public engagement process for the need of the plan to promote both inward and limit growth and outward expansion of the city. To address this, a tool of this plan establishes a minimum density of two dwelling units per acre. This is much different than the 2010 comprehensive plan that allows for residential estate development and densities as small as one dwelling unit per 2 acres. This minimum density tool establishes a much higher expected density for future rezones in the residential low land use category. As the community increases densities, the amount of land needed for growth decreases, reducing sprawl. The plan does not propose to remove the estate R1 and R2 zone districts from the zoning code because they can't meet the new minimum density requirements of 2 units per acre. Existing areas of the city zone, either residential estate RE, residential 1 R1, and residential 2 R2, will remain, and further development in these zone districts will be permitted. New rezones would adhere to the minimum density requirements established in the plan. Also found in Chapter 3 is the section on servicing growth. And it looks at capacity requirements and levels of service targets, including domestic water, wastewater, flood control and drainage, transportation, police and fire protection, parks and recreation, other utilities like gas, electric, broadband, telecommunications, and public schools and libraries. Chapter 4 is area-specific policies. While the plan principles and policies in Chapter 2 guide decision-making affecting the city as a whole, area-specific policies in Chapter 4 guide the desired use, characteristics, and form of development in specific locations within the city. This chapter outlines the vision and site-specific recommendations for 2 sub-areas, Lower Downtown and the 24 Road Corridor. This chapter also includes area-specific policies for the commercial, mixed-use, and industrial land use categories. Design principles include mix and relationship of uses, circulation and access, building form and character, streetscape, parking and service entrances, transportation modes, and relationship to surrounding areas. Chapter 5, Implementation and Monitoring. This chapter calls for an implementation matrix to be crafted that provides the action items for the city as well as the designated roles and responsibilities of the city's departments and expected resources needed. The matrix will not be adopted with this plan, but run parallel with it and will require approval by the city. The chapter also provides an overview of the process for creating updates and minor amendments to the plan. Lastly, the chapter calls for the city to regularly monitor the plan so as to reinforce the city's steadfast commitment to making measurable progress in achieving the community's vision. This chapter contains strategies to help support the implementation of the plan through 2040. It is a tool to guide the city council's strategic plan, department-level strategic plans and work programs, capital improvement planning, the city's budgeting process, and the allocation of staff time and other city resources. Anticipating timeframes for completion of the implementation strategies are as follows. Near term, already underway or to be initiated within 6 months to a year after plan adoption. Midterm, to be initiated within 1 to 3 years. Long term, to be initiated within three or more years. And ongoing. And these are actions to be implemented by city staff as part of their routine job duties. There's resources required and they're identified. They include regional collaboration, which includes many partnerships within our community. Outside support and funding, staff time, whether general fund and other funds, it identifies those other kinds of city funding sources. Also, the capital improvement plan, the CIP that the city does each year will be part of that, the resources that are identified. Implementation strategies are organized by each of the 11 plan principles found in Chapter 2. So everything really ties back to that Chapter 2. And then following Chapter 5 is the appendices. Appendices is, includes 4 areas. Appendix A has it lists many reports and plans the city has completed that remain active and inform the comprehensive plan. Appendix B includes many technical maps that inform the plan. Appendix C is a summary of the public process and outreach for the comprehensive plan. Appendix D is a list of potential funding sources and programs the city and community can tap into for future projects. like any plan adoption, there's an analysis that we have to do. The planning staff, in consultation with the city attorney, have determined that 2102-130 of the Zoning and Development Code regarding amending or amendments of the comprehensive plan is not applicable to the adoption of the One Grand Junction Comprehensive Plan. When adopted, this proposed plan will replace the 2010 Grand Junction Comprehensive Plan. Accordingly, the criteria of 2102-130C1, which relate to and concern amendments, are not controlling, legally operative, or determinative for purposes of considering or adopting the proposed plan. Furthermore, the amendment criteria found in the code, which are applicable to a proposed change to the adopted plan for a particular property or area of the community, cannot relate to a process for adoption of the proposed plan that touches and concerns the entire community. For these reasons, staff finds and recommends the Planning Commission City Council find that the criteria of 2102-130C1 are inapplicable and or that the adoption process, including the extensive work of the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee and the public hearings on the proposed plan, will afford sufficient information and provide a basis for due and careful consideration and adoption of this proposed One Grand Junction Comprehensive Plan. In regards to our findings of fact, as we review this 2021 Grand Junction Comprehensive Plan request for adoption to supersede and replace the 2010 Grand Junction Comprehensive Plan, the following findings of fact have been made. 1, the plan develops a community vision with achievable goals. 2, the plan works to protect private property rights. 3, the plan addresses recreation and tourism pursuant to state statute requirements for master plans. 4, the plan will help guide and facilitate decision-making on land uses and growth issues within the city. 5, the One Grand Junction Comprehensive Plan protects the public and preserves and creates opportunity to enhance quality of life. And 6, the One Grand Junction Comprehensive Plan will serve as the city's 3-mile plan as required in CRS 3112-101. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the plan. So that's the end of my presentation. I did want to turn it over to Ivan Gear. He wanted to make a statement or two in regards of his representation on CPAC. And then I'll also invite Erin if she wants to add to Ivan's testimony, and we'll go to that point. Ivan.
Okay, thanks, Dave, Chairman Teske, and members of the commission. I just wanted to talk briefly about, how that key tool that we talked about in terms of density that Dave talked about, how it came about. And at the very beginning of this, process during the public input period, echoing what was in Dave's presentation, we heard, consistent messaging from the community that they'd like to preserve some level of agricultural history. They'd like to prevent the urban sprawl that's been happening over the last 10 plus years. And they would like to, see more responsible growth and kind of development of a more, vibrant, diverse economy and community. So when you really broke that down, we started getting to the density question, in particular to sprawl and preservation of open space. You have if you just think about it in terms of if we had everything in that kind of 1 and R2 zoning developing, say not quite half the homes that we would need in the next 20 years, 11,000, say 5,000, you'd end up taking up 5,000 acres of space just to accommodate that, semi-estate, low density, sprawl type development. And, you take it to another level. We even talked about the number of units it would take to just have, at that density level, it wouldn't take more than 40 years to have houses from the bases of the Book Cliffs to the base of Mesa all the way out to the edges of the forest, so of the desert of Utah. So the other thing that resonates a lot with the people on the committee that are from the development industry is a deep understanding that low density development, when you look at it in terms of economic generation per the amount of pipelines, roads, concrete, sewers put in, don't really pay their own way, even in the long term, if everything's low density. You end up having a municipal budget that can never tax its way out of a declining revenue situation in an urban environment. And particularly if you want those urban services, urban infrastructure, as well as the fire and safety services, you have to have revenue. And to have revenue that's not from oil and gas and other industries that have declined, you need to have a higher population density generating economic activity. So that's a generally understood principle throughout the country. And so when we start to look at needing to try to figure out the density problem, the tiered approach that was accepted by the committee without much disagreement whatsoever was, the idea that we're going to really focus on infill development where the infrastructure is there. We're going to be able to maintain that infrastructure better long term. It's going to create vibrant communities and change the kind of whole complexion of the way we've been developing as a city, which has been outward. The past 10 years we've been operating under the feathering approach, which allows density to go wherever it needs to go within the city, that feathers adjacent densities become kind of the more governing element. So if you have a smaller density, you can put a lighter density near that and a lighter density out there farther beyond, and pretty soon you have this kind of feathered sprawl approach. And so I want to make it really clear that when we were having this conversation about how to really apply these tiers, it was a committee suggestion to look at reducing or increasing the minimum density in the tier 1 area, or any rezone for that matter, to this 2+ acres, 2 units per acre plus minimum. It was not a staff decision. It wasn't driven by staff. It was really kind of a group intuitive decision that came about from the idea of how do we really promote this density and affordable housing and all the pluses that come to the neighborhoods that could really use some level of development while still kind of preserving that agricultural heritage that's on the fringe for that kind of reserved tier 3 development. And at the same time, we're not changing anybody's existing zoning, so there's still opportunities for somebody that is zoned R1 to create that low density development if it's in a tier 2 or tier 3 area and already zoned. But the new future rezones are going to be specifically geared towards having that higher level density. And I'd like to point out that Grand Junction, the committee here is not alone in that same philosophy, because I'm actually on the code committee for the city of Fruita, and the city of Fruita has actually created a pretty hard line all the way out to their urban development boundary to have higher densities throughout their area, to be able to have more people, more vibrant communities, and more affordable inventory and more sustainable city budgets. So it was a committee suggestion. Staff didn't steer it either way, and it was a unanimous decision for us to suggest to the Planning Commission that this be implemented as part of the comprehensive plan. So that's what I really wanted to talk about. There's a lot of heavy lifting and hard work that a whole bunch of people did. We hope we synthesized it well enough with a strategy that would be different than the last 10 years while kind of balancing the future of the community and the desires and needs. So if there's any questions for me, I'll just hand it back to Dave otherwise.
All right, thanks. Aaron, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Thanks, Dave. I don't know that I have anything to add to that. I feel, I think Ivan summed it up pretty well, and I think Keith would jump in there too and agree that a lot of energy was spent discussing how to preserve the rural fringes. My experience coming to the group isn't the in-depth development perspective, so some of that was hard for me to wrap my head around. My perspective is more living in that rural tier 3 area. How do we preserve that, focus on infill? And I think that the committee and the city really heard that and just spent a lot of time discussing that. And I feel too, like Ivan said, that was supported by the city. And the comprehensive plan then does, I think, show that effort was the amount of effort that was put into those discussions. So I feel good about that. Beyond that, I don't think I have anything to add unless anybody has any specific questions outside of that.
Great, thank you. So I don't know, Keith, did you have anything you wanted to add to this part of the discussion or maybe later? You're muted. Hey Keith, you're muted.
There we go. I was muted by the other. Thanks, so I just wanted to add and emphasize that Ivan, I think, correctly described it as really a big discussion. There wasn't a whole lot of it's got to be this way or that way. It was, how do we address this? And I'll tell you, the pivotal moment was when the committee asked the staff and our consultants to go back and do a real assessment of what our existing inventory capacity is in these other tiers, or what we would call infill, because it was really a conversation of, guys, we have to put density somewhere, and if we don't put it out here within our urban growth boundary, where are we going to put it? And that data shined the brightest light on the whole plan, because it showed that within our existing underutilized parcels or even vacant parcels within the tier 1 and 2, that we could in fact build out our growth rate almost completely, if not completely. So I thought that was a real turning point that I wanted to make everybody aware of. And then the other piece to this, we certainly spent a lot of time focusing on the tier 3, but the implementation matrix that I think Dave will get to later is the key to this. Because we also recognize that if we don't do a better job through this plan to incentivize and make that more infill developments and in-road development more plausible and actually happen, then this tiered system kind of falls on its face a bit. So, paying close attention and making sure that as the future goes on, both Planning Commission and City Council, along with staff, will have a lot of work to do on that side in order for this this plan to really be as effective as it can be.
All right, thank you very much. So that with that, I'll just open it up for questions or take it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I was muted by the organizer there for a little bit. Well, thank you, Mr. Thornton. Appreciate that thoughtful presentation from everyone who added their thoughts here regarding this plan. Do we have any questions for our presenters this evening from the commission? I'm sure I can't see everyone. I'm not sure everyone is able to unmute themselves either, so we'll give you a second here to see if we can work it out.
It looks like Sam has a question.
Okay.
Sam, you're gonna have to unmute yourself. There's a red microphone to the left of the control panel. If you click on that, that should do the trick.
I think I have it. I had a question. I noticed on many of the comments by the community, they mentioned that they had no confidence in the county approving this plan. Tamara, do you, Jamie, or Dave have any information on that?
Yeah, I can take that question. So what we had the 16-member CPAC included. One of the 16 was a member of the Mesa County Planning Commission that was involved in our work with the as a committee member. And actually, we have the plan going through the county's review process now for a December 17th Planning Commission hearing with Mesa County Planning Commission. They recognize and we recognize the need for them to replace what was adopted in 2010 with whatever is adopted in 2020 by the city. And so that they will consider that on the 17th, which will be following the December 16th City Council hearing. So we'll know what was adopted at that point, obviously. So that way they're adopting what the city adopts. And basically, the 2020 plan will kind of remove the donut hole, so to speak, from the county's master plan that is county-wide, that donut hole being the city of Grand Junction's planning area. And we'll insert the donut into the overall Mesa County master plan. And it'll be a replace, just like is being proposed with the 2020 plan, replacing the 2010 plan for the city.
Dave, is it the Planning Commission for the county that approves our plan? I believe in 2010, it was the Planning Commission that had the authority to approve the plan and not the county commissioners.
It'll be the Mesa County Planning Commission on the 17th that will consider replacing the city's portion of their master plan with this new 2020 comprehensive plan. So it won't go to the county commissioners. It'll be done by the Mesa County Planning Commission, and they'll do it as a solo. Won't be appointed to their commission.
All right, do we have any other questions for our presenters?
I would just like to thank everybody for the time that they've put into this plan. Having 33 focus groups and numerous public meetings with, in the beginning, hundreds of attendees and receiving thousands of comments online and all of that. It takes a lot of work to put a plan like this together. And I just want to be able to recognize all of the city staff, the community, the leaders of this leadership team who work so diligently on this, for all of the work you've put into it. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner. Echo those thoughts as well. Since the city is both the applicant and has our staff presentation this evening, I think we can move on then to the public hearing portion of our proceedings this evening, unless someone else has other questions or comments to make before we do that. All right, well, hearing none then, we'll open the public hearing for public comment. Please direct your questions to the commission, not to the applicant or staff, who are the same people in this case. If testimony is duplicative or repetitious of what has already been presented, please note in your comments agreement or disagreement with preceding testimony. Public comment is limited, as I've said before, to 3 minutes per person. Please note the Planning Commission may not directly respond to questions that you may pose, but we have heard your questions and may choose after public comment to ask the applicant or staff to address specific questions. To accommodate all public comment from our audience this evening in our virtual setting, please use the raise hand feature if you would like to speak on this item. To raise your hand, please click the hand icon in the grab tab of the control panel for those using the desktop app, or the toolbar menu for the Instant Join app users. The hand icon will glow green while it is raised and will return to gray once it is lowered by you or by the staff. please leave your hand raised until you've had the opportunity to speak. Staff will unmute individuals wishing to leave testimony one at a time. Staff will announce your name, indicating it is your time to speak. So please note that you will need to unmute yourself before you can speak. Staff, is there anyone indicating they would like to speak on this agenda item?
Chairman
Chairman
Teskey.
Teskey, I am not seeing anyone yet, but we've got 4 attendees, 2 of which are alternates to the Planning Commission and 2 of which are CPAC members, but I'm not seeing a hand being raised at this point in time.
All right, well, if we have 4 attendees who are CPAC members and alternates on our Planning Commission, I would imagine we might not have much public comment this evening, but we'll give folks another few seconds to think it over. Well, having received no public comment then this evening, we'll go ahead and close our public comment portion of this hearing. I presume, having heard no public comment, that there's no proposed response from the staff for our applicant this evening, but if you'd like to provide any additional thoughts or comments, now's your chance.
Chairman Teskey, I might just add a couple thoughts. It's unusual to get to this point in a comprehensive planning process and not have public testimony, so perhaps wanted to address that in a real way. Obviously, we're in the middle of a pandemic, which may have tampered the participation today, but did want to just acknowledge the huge effort that has been made by our staff here, specifically Dave Thornton, in doing a amount of outreach to our community between the time that we had a draft available and tonight. And I don't know the exact number, but I think Dave has conducted at least a dozen outreach meetings where he's actually given essentially a brief version of what you heard tonight, but in a tutorial to different groups and organizations throughout this community and bringing them up to speed with this draft of the plan. So wanted to acknowledge that. And I think the resounding comments we've heard have been very supportive of the plan and also very appreciative of the outreach in these kind of very interesting times. So wanted to acknowledge that. Certainly that doesn't necessarily explain entirely the absence of participation this evening, but did want to make sure and let you know that we have done a very concerted effort here to reach out and engage and let people know what this document has in them and how it may impact them.
Thank you, Director Allen. Appreciate those
That's all I had.
comments. Yeah, these are certainly straining and hard work everyone put into getting feedback from our community prior to this evening's meeting. Do we have any questions for staff at this time that we didn't get to ask already? Well, as before, I'm not sure I can see all of you, but I don't hear anyone making noises like they want to ask a question. So at this time, we'll close the public hearing and turn to the Planning Commission for additional discussion, deliberation, and or a motion. Commissioner Gassos.
Okay. Can anybody hear me now?
Yes.
We can.
Good. Okay. Well, I want to make a few comments. I echo what Commissioner Reese just said about the tremendous effort that the staff and the CPAC 16 committee members and all the community did for the last almost 2 years on this project, especially in the middle of COVID. And I'm not at all community development director. I'm not at all disappointed in not having anybody to hearing. You might construe that as good news. But I think your comments that over 2,200 meetings over the last 21 months. I think people have had a chance to put their input in. In addition, we got comments during the last workshops that the city acted on. The city acted on and made some changes there. So I don't want to talk too long. I think this is probably one of the most important things this commission will do in the last several years. We've been working with a very good 2010 plan, but it's outdated. We need to move on, and we need to, but I am so pleased with these qualities of this plan. Number one, any comprehensive plan is only as good as the input you got from the community. We got tremendous input, period. Number two, I think it was wise, and I really think the CPAC committee did a lot of work, and I know, Keith, I appreciate your input and your expertise on this. But here's what I like best about the plan is it's a living document. It's a plan that can be used for 10, 20 years. It's not just so constrained. And it also involves the principles, the 11 principles that came from the visioning exercise, came from the people. And it also, what's important, I believe, is it's dealt with in the land use area, the tiered structure, and it creates balanced growth. And I really do like the addition of the minimum, and I'm going to say that again, R2 minimum doesn't preclude, as I'm understanding, a higher density. But I think that's going to prevent urban sprawl, and I like that idea. I think it also involves other things besides residential. This vision and this growth of this city isn't just residential. It's also industrial, it's also office, it's also mixed use. We're adding mixed use. I think that's an important tool. So I like that. I like the fact that we've reduced the number of densities to more simplified low, medium, and high. And I think that's good. And I like what I like also very much is, the comprehensive plan or blueprints and plans only work according to what your staff assets are and budget assets. And I like the implementation plan. So I think this is a great plan. I'm enthusiastically supporting this plan. And I realize that ultimately it has to be approved by City Council. But that's the comments I wanted to make. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, Commissioner Sears.
I also would like to thank all of those involved in this very lengthy and strenuous process. We have a great team with our staff, and we also had some consultants, I think, that were involved, but Tamara and Jamie, David, and all the other staff that took part in this, I think they did a tremendous job. I read the plan itself, I've studied also the staff recommendation and findings of fact, and I support that very strongly. And with that, I would like to make a motion if you're ready.
Well, I'm certainly ready. I imagine we would appreciate your motion.
All right, Mr. Chairman, on the 2021 Grand Comprehensive Plan request, City File Number CPA-209-20219-60, I move that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of adoption to the City Council with the findings of fact as listed by the staff report.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion before we vote on this motion? All right, hearing none, then all those in favor would signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed would say nay. All right. right, hearing none, that matter would pass 7-0. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I don't believe there's any other business that we have to attend to this evening, although perhaps Director Allen will let us know if there is.
Yeah, Chairman, thank you so much. Before we move too far afield from the comprehensive plan process, did certainly want to just take the time to acknowledge all of your work in this plan. As you know, we've spent hours workshopping and discussing this with you all, and many of you, if not all of you, I know spent time in participating in the hearings and the workshops, and very much appreciate the engagement. I think that this hearing is frankly testimony to your engagement throughout the process, and very much appreciate your interest in the plan, and do hope amongst you all that this serves our community very well for the time as we look forward in the next 10 to 20 years.
Thank you, Director Allen. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Before we conclude tonight, there was one other topic of interest that I wanted to bring to your attention, and really it is about just the logistics of our meetings. Clearly, we've gone virtual for this. I did want to note that one of the attempts we have been making is trying to bring the Planning Commission fully in line with also City Council practices, to really eliminate some confusion amongst how we're all engaging, especially in these new times with our virtual formats and other things. One of the more recent changes City Council made was actually moving their meetings up to a 5:30 start time versus a 6 o'clock start time. And so wanted to discuss that all with you all to see if that's something that you would be interested and supportive of as well, in making that adjustment to the time in which meetings started.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think moving that up a half an hour would be nice for scheduling purposes and also for consistency with council, but obviously open to everyone else's thoughts as well. I see thumbs up and shaking heads and so forth. Generalized agreement that moving to 5:30 would be a good idea. So that appears to be the consensus.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm wondering, just for our record here, if we could get a motion to that effect, that would help us.
Absolutely. Would someone like to make that motion?
Sure, I'll do that. I move that we change our start time for our public meetings to 5:30 from the current 6 p.m.
Thank you, Commissioner Scissors. A race to second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that one passes 7-0 as well. It'll be 5:30.
Just make sure
Excellent.
you remind us
Chairman Teskey,
repeatedly.
Yes, reminders of the new time will be essential, I'm sure.
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll do our best. Did just on another piece of logistics want to just make sure that you all got or received the emails regarding the workshop on Thursday. So we'd originally sent out a cancellation, but have rescheduled that workshop. We will be previewing a presentation on a proposed access control plan for Patterson Road. So that is within the purview of the Planning Commission's roles and responsibilities. So do look forward to that on Thursday. And I believe if you have not already received something from Bella this evening, that first thing tomorrow, you should get a link to that workshop agenda. And Chairman Teskey, I believe that is finally all I have for you this evening.
Well, thank you, Director Allen. We appreciate, as always, your guidance in getting us on the right track here. If we don't have any other business, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Reese. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Want to stay all night? All right, hearing none. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.